issue, nigga. That's the real issue, nigga.
A 32-year-old Di-Quan Hunt is this man who is seen in now viral videos punching women without any warning.
You sitting here playing with me, nigga. That's the real issue, nigga. July 21st is the real issue, nigga. July 21st, that's the real issue. Nah, don't wave to me.
Police say the victim was walking along East Boulevard last week when she is punched in the face, then drops to the ground.
Now, the clip I just played was of a 32-year-old man named Di-Quan Hunt. And prior to this brutal assault, this guy had an extensive criminal record. In just the last 3 years, he had reportedly been arrested 8 separate times, but this goes back further than that. Since 2012, Di-Quan Hunt had been named in 11 different criminal cases and faced a total of 22 charges. We're talking assaulting women, violating domestic violence protective orders, firing a gun into occupied property, breaking and entering, pepper spraying someone on a city bus, assaulting a government official. And just months before this particular incident, he was accused of threatening a man with a knife. He eventually pleaded guilty to assault with a deadly weapon and carrying a concealed weapon. But after all that, for the knife-related case, he was sentenced to time served, 3 months. In fact, according to prison records reviewed by the Charlotte Observer, Di-Quan Hunt had never actually served time in state prison for any of these convictions. His sentences were either credited as time he had already spent in the county jail or suspended for probation. And somehow after all of that, he kept ending up back on the streets. And that's what makes this so frustrating, because this wasn't somebody with no history. This was somebody who had been arrested over and over again, convicted of multiple crimes, and had already been accused of violence involving women in the past, a government official, and even a deadly weapon. Yet somehow he was still out in society, to the point where he ended up recording himself approaching the woman in the clip that I just showed you, who, by the way, was just walking on the street, minding her own business, and she ended up waving at him. And moments later, he knocked her to the ground.
That video is now being spread across social media, going viral. 32-year-old Di-Quan Hunt is now in a medical facility awaiting charges following that alleged assault in Dilworth.
Now, when I saw this clip, honestly, it made me sick to my stomach, and so sick to the point where I actually had a hard time eating this morning. And I kind of hate the fact that I even have to talk about this, because I'm generally disgusted by this entire story. But I think we need to talk about it for a few different reasons. So this clip has been going viral over the last few days, and for anybody who hasn't seen it or heard about what happened, honestly, I'm sure you're going to be as outraged as me about this particular story. And I'm disgusted by the fact that things like this keep happening, but we'll get to that in a second. But first, I want you to really just understand how random this was. According to police, this attack appeared to be unprovoked, and the two did not know each other. They had no history, there was no argument, there was no confrontation beforehand. Their interaction was essentially this woman walking past him, or almost walking past him, right? And giving him a simple wave, you know, kind of like you're walking down the street like, hey, what's up? And then he was just like rambling before he even got to her, really just talking to himself. And then, yeah. So she was a complete stranger who happened to acknowledge him as she walked by. So the woman actually ended up surviving the attack, thank God. But police say she suffered serious injuries. And beyond the physical injuries, I can only imagine the mental toll that something this random and violent could have on somebody. So my prayers are with that woman and her family. But this is where the story gets even more frustrating, because Di-Quan Hunt had basically been causing havoc in Charlotte for more than a decade. He had been arrested repeatedly. He had been convicted of multiple crimes. He had been accused of assaulting women and firing a gun into a building and threatening somebody with a knife. I mean, he just had a crazy rap sheet. Yet despite all that, according to the Charlotte Observer, he had never served a state prison sentence for any of those convictions. And I think that's crazy. So he just kept getting released over and over again, until eventually he was back on the streets, and this woman became his latest victim. So that's how broken the system really is, to the point where somebody who has shown time and time again how violent they can really be just keeps ending up back on the streets. And the craziest part is, even his own family had apparently been trying to get him help for years. His sister told the news that he had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and PTSD after their father was murdered. And while she said she wanted justice for the woman, she also basically pointed to his mental illness and said she wanted her brother to finally get the help that he needs. So even his own family knew this dude had serious issues long before this happened.
This is Hunt's sister, who asked us not to show her face. She says out-of-state relatives told them about the video.
I wanted her to have justice for what happened because she didn't deserve it. But I also want my brother to get the help that he needs because he is severely mentally ill.
You know how bad you gotta be when your own family knows something needs to be done? So that's the situation with this guy. I mean, you take one look at this dude's rap sheet, and this is really not a person who should have been anywhere near the general public. The amount of damage he had already caused before this brutal attack on this poor woman is honestly staggering. And now the virality of this horrifying clip has basically started another conversation about how the system deals with repeat offenders. And this is not the first time we've seen stories like this. I remember literally almost a year ago, there was the horrifying murder of 23-year-old Irina Zarutska. She was a young woman from Ukraine who had moved to the United States, and one night she was simply riding the light trail home in Charlotte. And next thing you know, this career criminal sitting behind her pulls out a knife and kills her completely unprovoked. And once again, when people started looking into the dude who did this, he had an extensive criminal history and had repeatedly been back out in society. And now almost a year later, the case still hasn't even gone to trial. In June, a federal judge ruled that DeCarlos Brown was mentally incompetent to stand trial for the time being. He's still locked up and undergoing treatment to try to restore his competency, so the case could still move forward later. I guess we'll see, right? And oh, did I mention that this happened in Charlotte too? I know some of you guys live in Charlotte. I just want to ask you a question. What the fuck is going on in Charlotte? Clearly something in that system needs to be looked at. Now, one of the most disturbing things about this guy is that this was not the only video where he was doing something like this. And there's one in particular that's honestly hard to watch. I'm going to play a couple seconds of it right now. So he basically starts chasing this woman toward the street, and she ended up running into traffic trying to get away from this guy. She comes dangerously close to getting hit by a car, like super close. And once again, this is all being recorded and posted by this guy. So obviously this was not like a one isolated moment or nothing like that. There was a pattern here. And ain't no telling how much of this kind of stuff he did when he wasn't recording. I mean, if the stuff he chose to record was already this bad, just imagine what he chose not to record. And heavy on the word chose, because clearly there's still some level of decision making going on here. He's not just randomly attacking everybody he comes across. From the videos we've seen, he appears to be targeting women only. And let's be real, that obviously matters here. Because if we're going to blame it on mental health, if his mental state was so completely out of control and this was purely mental illness, you would expect to see that same energy toward men too. But you don't. And I think there's a reason for that. He knows damn well that if he walks up on the wrong grown men, I would say most grown men, and tries the same thing, there's a much higher chance that, he would meet God. So clearly he's capable of making some kind of choices about who he targets. And to me, that makes it very hard to just blame all this on mental health.
But I ain't do nothing. You say that when I get motherfuckers who walk by me, say that I didn't do nothing, or my children, or I had no victory to show for, but I ain't do nothing at all.
Now, listening to him ramble in some of these videos, obviously there's something going on mentally and that has to be considered. But I also don't think that automatically means this dude deserves sympathy or that it excuses what he did. There are millions of people dealing with serious mental health problems every single day who do not go around terrorizing and attacking innocent people, especially women. So at some point, you gotta ask, what's the common denominator here? Him. So the question I have is, how did we even get here? Because I have a hard time buying the fact that somebody can have this many run-ins with the law, this many violent incidents, this many warning signs, and somehow nobody along the way was able to say, maybe this dude should not be back out on the streets right now. Like, at what point does the system actually step in? Because when somebody keeps getting arrested, keeps getting back out, keeps doing more shit, and then eventually an innocent woman gets seriously hurt in this manner, I mean, what he did was absolutely brutal and disgusting. At some point, you can't just look at the individual anymore. You also have to look at every single opportunity there was to stop it before it got to this point. And that's what I'm having a hard time understanding. And here's another thing that bothers me. What happens if this video never goes viral? Because this incident happened on July 30, and Di-Quan Hunt wasn't arrested until August 6, after these videos started spreading online and were brought to the attention of police. So I genuinely wonder, if nobody reposts this, if nobody talks about it, if this dude doesn't literally document his own crimes against women, how long does this continue? And how many other people could have potentially been victimized that we simply don't know about? And from the other videos that surfaced, this is clearly just beyond one encounter. Again, it's a pattern, which means we might not even know the full extent of what this dude was doing. And honestly, the reason why I'm even talking about this is because I'm kind of sick of seeing stories like this. I'm not going to sit here and act like the system never gets it right. Of course it does. But there are also situations, a lot of situations, where it gets it horribly wrong. And the price for getting it wrong is this. It's another innocent person ending up face to face with somebody who had already shown over and over again that he could be, he was dangerous. And that's the part that bothers me. Because at some point, if we're showing more concern for repeatedly putting somebody like this back into society than we are for the potential people they might hurt next, then something is seriously backwards. You can have sympathy for somebody's mental health struggles, of course. You can believe they need help, but that sympathy cannot come at the expense of innocent people's safety. Because when that happens, it's usually somebody else who ends up paying the price. But honestly, I'm really curious what you guys think about this particular story right here. Did you guys see any of these clips or this particular clip? Did you hear about this story? I feel like a lot of you probably did, because I have a feeling we're kind of all on the same algorithm, which is probably why you're watching this video in the first place. But seriously, my thoughts are with that woman and her family. I don't really get affected by a lot of stuff I see on social media anymore because I'm kind of desensitized, I'll be honest with you, especially after covering a lot of this stuff. But this was one of those clips that generally put like a pit in my stomach. I literally couldn't eat this morning because of that. Like, disgusting, bro. It's very disturbing. But yeah, you guys let me know in the comment section below what you think about this whole situation, if you have anything to share. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace, I'm out.